There are moments in life when the world becomes silent, when doubt grows louder than hope, when the path ahead looks uncertain, and the weight of your own thoughts feels heavier than the world itself. In those moments, what you truly need is not someone to save you, but a voice that reminds you of who you really are. Today, let that voice be this, because deep inside you lives a power most people never awaken. A force buried beneath fear, beneath past failures, beneath the expectations of others. The tragedy of life is not suffering. The tragedy is living without discovering the strength hidden inside your own soul. The world will not always give you encouragement. Sometimes it will give you rejection. Sometimes it will give you silence. But the person who learns to give themselves a pep talk becomes unstoppable. Not because life becomes easier, but because their mind becomes stronger. Most people don't lose their battles in the outside world. They lose them quietly in the private conversations happening inside their own minds. Long before a person fails in action, they often fail in belief. A small voice begins to whisper doubts. You're not ready. You're not strong enough. Someone else could do this better. And slowly, without realizing it, they begin to accept the role of a victim in their own story. But the mind is not just a place where thoughts appear. It is a place where identities are formed. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you see yourself. And the way you see yourself becomes the way you face the world. If every day you repeat words of weakness, your spirit slowly begins to shrink. If you constantly remind yourself of your past mistakes, your mind starts believing that failure is your destiny. Over time, the voice in your head becomes a prison that limits what you think is possible. But there is another way to live. Imagine speaking to yourself the way a warrior would before stepping onto the battlefield, not with arrogance, but with determination, not pretending fear does not exist, but refusing to let fear make the decisions. A warrior does not wait until they feel perfect confidence. They move forward despite uncertainty because they trust something deeper inside themselves. When things go wrong, a victim says, "Why does this always happen to me?" A warrior says, "What can this teach me?" When a victim falls, they see the fall as proof that they are weak. When a warrior falls, they see the fall as part of the training. This difference may sound small, but it changes everything, because the words you choose in your mind shape the direction of your life. Your inner dialogue becomes the script you follow every day. Think about the moments when life feels overwhelming, the moments when exhaustion creeps in and quitting seems easier than continuing. In those moments, the most powerful thing you can do is pause and speak to yourself with strength. Tell yourself, "I have survived difficult days before. I am stronger than the fear trying to control me. This moment is not the end of my story." These words are not empty motivation, they are reminders of your true nature, because every human being carries an incredible capacity for resilience. The problem is that many people never awaken it, because they spend their lives listening to the voice that weakens them instead of the voice that weakens them, instead of the voice that strengthens them. A warrior understands that the mind must be trained, just like the body. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance, the mind grows stronger through disciplined thinking. Every time you challenge a negative thought, you reclaim a little more power over your life. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. The voice of doubt becomes quieter. The voice of courage becomes clearer, and you begin to realize that strength was never something you had to find in the world. It was something waiting inside you all along. Life will still test you. There will still be setbacks, moments of uncertainty, and days when progress feels invisible. But when you learn to speak to yourself like a warrior, those challenges no longer define you. They become the fire that forges your character. And one day, you will look back and realize something powerful. The greatest turning point in your life was not when circumstances changed. It was the moment you decided that the voice inside your mind would no longer be your enemy. It would become your greatest ally. There is a part of every human being that they try to hide from the world, a part that feels uncomfortable, imperfect, even frightening. It holds the emotions we were taught to suppress, the desires we were told were unacceptable, and the memories we would rather forget. Most people spend their lives running away from this side of themselves, pretending it does not exist. They try to appear calm when they are angry, confident when they are insecure, strong when they are afraid. But the truth is that what we hide does not disappear. It waits in the background of the mind, influencing our behavior in ways we often do not understand. The anger we refuse to acknowledge turns into bitterness. The fear we deny turns into anxiety. The insecurity we bury quietly shapes the choices we make in relationships, work, and life. Running from this hidden part of yourself may feel easier in the short term, but over time it creates a deeper inner conflict. You begin to feel divided, as if one part of you is constantly fighting another part inside your own mind, and this silent battle drains your energy without you even realizing it. True psychological strength begins when you stop running. It begins the moment you become brave enough to turn inward and face the parts of yourself that you once rejected, not with judgment, not with shame, but with honesty and awareness. This does not mean becoming controlled by anger or darkness. It means understanding where those feelings come from. It means recognizing that the traits you fear within yourself often contain hidden energy that can be transformed into something powerful. For example, anger, when unconscious, can destroy relationships and decisions. But when understood and directed wisely, it becomes courage and the ability to defend what truly matters. Fear, when ignored, can trap you in hesitation, but when faced directly, it sharpens awareness and prepares you for growth. The qualities we label as negative are often simply raw forms of energy that have not yet been understood. When you begin to explore this hidden side of yourself, something surprising happens. You start to feel more complete. The parts of your personality that once felt fragmented begin to integrate. Instead of pretending to be perfect, you become authentic. Instead of constantly hiding your flaws, you learn from them. This process is not comfortable. Looking at your own shadow requires courage because it forces you to see truths about yourself that you may have avoided for years. You may discover jealousy you never admitted, resentment you never expressed, or fears that quietly shape your decisions. But facing these truths does not weaken you. It liberates you, because the moment you become aware of your shadow, it stops controlling you from the darkness. What was once unconscious becomes something you can understand, shape, and transform. Many people believe growth means becoming only light, only positivity, only perfection. But real growth is deeper than that. Real growth means becoming whole. It means accepting that within you there is both light and darkness, strength and vulnerability, wisdom and confusion. And when you stop rejecting parts of yourself, you gain access to a deeper level of power. You become more honest with yourself, more compassionate toward others, more aware of the forces that shape human behavior. Instead of fearing your own depth, you begin to explore it. The person who denies their shadow remains limited by it, but the person who confronts it gains something rare, self-mastery. Because when you truly understand your own darkness, the world loses much of its power to frighten you. You realize that the greatest transformation in life does not happen by escaping who you are. It happens by having the courage to meet yourself completely and grow from that encounter. There are moments in every life when the road becomes difficult, when progress feels slow, and when the weight of effort begins to feel heavier than the hope of success. In those moments, many people quietly begin to question themselves. They look at the obstacles in front of them and start believing that something must be wrong with them, that perhaps they are not meant to succeed, that perhaps the struggle itself is proof that they are failing. But this belief is one of the greatest illusions the human mind creates. Struggle is not a sign that you are moving in the wrong direction. In many cases, it is the clearest sign that you are moving toward growth. Nothing meaningful in life is created without tension, without pressure, without moments where the path forward feels uncertain. Every transformation begins with discomfort, because the old version of you must be challenged before a stronger version can emerge. Think about how nature works. A seed does not become a tree in comfort, it begins its journey buried in darkness. Surrounded by pressure from the soil, it must push through resistance, break through the ground, and fight for sunlight before it can grow tall. If that seed could think like many people do, it might believe that the darkness means failure. Yet in reality, that struggle is the very process that allows it to grow. Human life follows a similar pattern. When you begin learning something new, you will feel confusion before clarity. When you try to build something meaningful, you will encounter resistance before progress. When you attempt to transform your life, you will experience doubt before confidence. These experiences are not signals to stop. They are signs that your mind and character are expanding beyond their previous limits. The problem is that many people compare their difficult beginnings to someone else's visible success. They look at those who appear strong, confident, or accomplished, and assume those people never face the same inner battles. But every person who has achieved something meaningful has walked through periods of uncertainty, exhaustion, and failure. The difference is not that they avoided struggle. The difference is that they understood its purpose. Instead of interpreting hardship as proof of weakness, they recognized it as training. Every challenge became an opportunity to sharpen their resilience. Every mistake became information that helped them improve. Every setback became a lesson about patience, discipline, and perseverance. When you adopt this perspective, struggle begins to look very different. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, you begin to see it as a teacher. It forces you to develop qualities that comfort never could: endurance, humility, creativity, and mental strength. A person who has never struggled often remains fragile because their strength has never been tested, but the person who has faced difficulties and continued moving forward becomes deeply resilient. They learn that pain can be endured, that fear can be confronted, and that progress is possible even when the path feels uncertain. There will be days when your efforts feel invisible, days when you work hard and see little immediate reward. In those moments, it is easy to believe that nothing is changing, but transformation rarely happens in dramatic bursts. It happens quietly, slowly beneath the surface of daily effort. Just as muscles grow stronger through repeated strain, the mind grows stronger through repeated challenges. Each moment you choose persistence over surrender, you are shaping your character. Each time you continue despite doubt, you are building a deeper foundation within yourself. Over time, those small acts of resilience accumulate. The person who once felt uncertain begins to notice a change. The challenges that once seemed overwhelming become manageable. The fears that once controlled you begin to lose their power, and one day you realize something profound. The struggles you once wished to avoid were the very experiences that made you capable of becoming who you are today. Life does not grow you through comfort alone. It grows you through friction, through effort, through the courage to keep moving even when the destination feels far away. So when you encounter difficulty, do not immediately assume you are failing. Sometimes the struggle is simply the process of becoming stronger than you were before. Stop waiting for permission to become who you are. One of the quietest traps a person can fall into is the habit of waiting. Waiting for approval, waiting for confidence, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone else to say that it is finally acceptable to step forward and become who they truly are. This waiting can last for years, sometimes even a lifetime, and during that time, a person slowly begins to shrink their dreams to fit the expectations of others. From childhood, many people are taught to seek validation. They learn to ask if their choices are acceptable, if their ideas are good enough, if their ambitions are realistic. Over time, this habit creates a subtle dependency on external approval. Instead of listening to the deeper voice within themselves, they begin to measure their worth by the reactions of the world around them. But the truth is that the world rarely gives permission for greatness. The world often encourages safety, familiarity, and predictability. It tends to reward those who follow established paths, rather than those who dare to create their own. If you wait for universal approval before pursuing the life that feels authentic to you, that moment may never arrive. There comes a point in every person's journey when they must realize something powerful. The responsibility for their life cannot be handed to anyone else. No mentor, no friend, no audience, and no authority figure can truly decide who you are meant to become. Others can offer advice, encouragement, or criticism, but the final decision about your direction belongs to you alone. This realization can feel both liberating and frightening. Liberating because it gives you control over your own destiny. Frightening because it removes the comfort of excuses. When you stop waiting for permission, you can no longer blame hesitation on the absence of approval. You must confront the deeper question of whether you are willing to take responsibility for your own potential. Many people delay their transformation because they believe they must feel ready first. They imagine that confidence will appear before they begin, that clarity will arrive before they take the first step. But confidence rarely comes before action. It grows through action. It develops when you choose to move forward despite uncertainty. The person you want to become does not appear overnight. That person is shaped through countless small decisions, choosing discipline instead of distraction, choosing courage instead of comfort, choosing authenticity instead of imitation. Each decision may seem insignificant in the moment, but together they create the direction of your life. When you stop waiting for permission, something inside you begins to shift. You start listening more carefully to your own values instead of constantly measuring yourself against the expectations of others. You begin to realize that mistakes are not disasters, but part of the process of discovering your path. And you become less afraid of judgment, because you understand that no life of meaning is ever built without criticism from those who do not understand it. This does not mean rejecting all advice or ignoring the wisdom of others. Guidance can be valuable, and learning from those who have walked before you can prevent many unnecessary struggles. But guidance should illuminate your path, not replace your responsibility for walking it. The truth is that the world is full of people who postponed their dreams until the opportunity disappeared. They waited until they felt certain, until they felt safe, until they felt approved. By the time they realized that permission would never come, time had already moved forward. Your life is unfolding now, not someday in the distant future. The version of yourself you imagine becoming will only exist if you begin acting in alignment with that vision today. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a declaration that your life belongs to you. And when you truly accept that responsibility, something remarkable happens. The hesitation that once controlled you begins to fade. The fear of judgment loses much of its power. You begin to realize that the most important approval you will ever receive is the quiet respect you feel for yourself when you live honestly. Because in the end, the purpose of life is not to fit perfectly into the expectations of others. It is to discover the unique potential that exists within you and to have the courage to bring that potential into the world. No one else can grant you that permission. It begins the moment you decide to claim it. There is a quiet but powerful idea that can change the way you see every moment of your life. Imagine that somewhere in the future, the person you are meant to become already exists in potential. Stronger, wiser, calmer, more disciplined, more confident, a version of you that has learned from struggle, grown through hardship, and built a life that reflects your deepest values. That future self is not just a dream or a fantasy. It is the result of the choices you make today. Every action you take is slowly shaping that person. Every habit you build, every challenge you face, every decision you make when no one else is watching. These moments are quietly constructing the character of the person you will become. Most people live as if the future is something distant and abstract. They assume that someday they will become more disciplined, someday they will become more confident, someday they will pursue their purpose. But the truth is that the future does not suddenly appear one day fully formed. It is built through the small and often unnoticed actions of the present. In a deeper sense, the person you are becoming is always observing the choices you make right now, not in a literal way, but in a symbolic and psychological sense. Your future self depends entirely on the direction you choose today. Every time you choose growth over comfort, discipline over distraction, courage over fear, you are honoring that future version of yourself. You are creating the conditions that allow that person to exist. But the opposite is also true. When you repeatedly ignore your potential, when you allow fear to make your decisions, when you postpone the work that could transform your life, you slowly move further away from the person you could become. This realization can feel heavy at first. It means that your life is not shaped only by luck or circumstances. It is shaped by your willingness to take responsibility for your actions and your direction. Yet within this responsibility lies something incredibly empowering. Because if your choices shape your future, it also means that every day is a new opportunity to change the direction of your life. You do not need to transform everything overnight. In fact, true transformation rarely happens in sudden dramatic moments. It happens through consistent effort, small acts of discipline repeated over time. A decision to learn instead of wasting time. A decision to confront fear instead of avoiding it. A decision to stay committed even when motivation fades. These small actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate into something powerful. Over weeks, months, and years they build habits. Those habits shape your character, and your character ultimately shapes your destiny. When you begin to see life from this perspective, everyday choices take on a deeper meaning. The way you spend your mornings, the way you respond to setbacks, the way you treat others, the way you use your time when no one is watching, these are not random moments, they are building blocks of the person you are becoming. There will be times when the easier path is tempting, times when comfort whispers that discipline can wait until tomorrow. In those moments, it can be powerful to pause and imagine the person you want to become standing somewhere ahead in the distance. Stronger because of the sacrifices you made, wiser because if the lessons you accepted, proud because you did not abandon your growth when things became difficult. That future version of you is shaped by the decisions you make today. One day, years from now, you will look back at this period of your life. You will see the moments when you chose courage over fear, effort over excuses, and growth over stagnation. And you will realize that those choices were not just temporary struggles. They were the foundation of the person you eventually became. So every day ask yourself a simple but powerful question. Are my actions today creating a life that my future self will thank me for? Because whether you realize it or not, the person you are becoming is always waiting just ahead of you, shaped by every decision you make in this moment. So if you ever feel lost, if doubt whispers that you are not strong enough, give yourself a pep talk. Remind yourself that you have survived every difficult day so far. Remind yourself that growth is uncomfortable, but transformation is worth it. And most importantly, remember this: the greatest power you will ever discover is not outside you. It is the voice inside you that says, "No matter what happens, I will rise again."